Welcome to Push with Love. Today we have Rook from Epic Sages. Thank you for joining me today. Appreciate it.
Hello, glad to be here.
Please tell us a little bit about the role playing community and Epic Sages and what kind of inspired you to get into this.
Gotcha. Well, so there's a lot there. So I'll start by introducing myself. I'm Roger Peters, or Rook. It's my nickname. And I'm one of the owners of Epic Sages. Epic Sages is a TTRPG hosting site where we teach people, companies, businesses, corporations, all those fun people, places, things, how to play games like D&D, Pathfinder, Starfinder, all the nerdy games where you roll dice and tell stories, right? And how we got into it is I've been doing this since I was a teenager, 15, 16, somewhere around there, and pretty much continued on. I was an Army vet for a bit, and in the Army, I met lots of people, and that's one of the interesting ways we connected. After I got out of the Army, I continued playing with people and meeting new people. That's how I socialized and did a lot of the nerdy community stuff. And then eventually we're just like, man, there's just one of those needs in the market. No one does this for pay. No one does it for hire. It's really hard to find the people that are doing stories, and the people that do the stories are the people that have done the stories for years. They're the same people all the time, right? And sometimes they just need a break. So that's where we came in and started our service side of things, where we do that stuff. Right? Run games. We teach people how to do things. So it's not always the same person in the same group doing the same stories. And we focus on creativity and jumping around and doing all that fun stuff. And then it developed to also selling all the nerdy stuff to go with it. You know, the selling the dice, the swords, the all the cool looking things that you can get to go with your TTRPG experience. TTRPG, for those of you that don't know, is tabletop role playing games. Is the shorthand for it, or the long form for the shorthand. That answer the question, or do you need some more?
Oh, no, that was great. So you really found that community and just kind of built off of it, which I kind of love that because I feel like the more we can kind of follow our passion, we will draw the community to us just through enjoying whatever we enjoy naturally. And it sounds like you carried that on from your childhood into adulthood, which is beautiful.
Yeah, it's one of those funny things is muscles go flat if you don't use them. And that's kind of how our imagination as adults go too. If you continue pushing and things, your mental processes speed up. You're able to latch on to stuff. You care more about stuff. One of those cool psychological things we found, I say we, but I just mean people in general, is that brain can't tell the difference between you really doing an action and you pretending to do an action. So thought process and going through scenarios is super duper helpful for a ton of different stuff, right? And role play, as a general standard, especially in the TTRPG space, allows you to role play things you necessarily couldn't do in life, right? Defeat big monsters, have emotional moments with people you care about, be an adventurer and enjoy the outside worlds, solve problems that are whatever. It gives you a feeling of gratitude from people that you help save, or a feeling of victory when you have a big fight. All those things still play into what you're doing as a person and develop you in the background. It's one of those background building subconscious things, and all you're doing is having fun with your friends, right? So it's a super powerful tool for that kind of stuff as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I feel the same way. I feel like when you get the opportunity to kind of express yourself freely in a safe environment with friends, you can kind of get into some really in depth emotional insight that you might not really have gotten to or gotten to that point unless you were really acting it out or role playing a character that you kind of designed, which is really just a part of who you are. Have you found in your experience with role playing with your friends, have you found that there has been moments like that where you kind of fell into this really unexpected environment of just really deep emotional kind of experience or um, kind of an insight that you really weren't aware of?
So we like to make the joke that D&D is free therapy. So yes, all the time actually. It's a at minimum once campaign thing where one of the characters just latched onto something that we as people that are observing from the outside know that there's something else going on, but we don't have to poke at it or make them feel upset because it is obviously their character going through it. So they have a wall of protection while they're dealing with whatever is going on there, right? And as like working with businesses and things like that, when we see an employee have one of those moments, kind of go through that, it allows our other people slash management or other things to kind of queue up on, hey, that might be an issue that we need to take care of, kind of thing, in a positive way without getting HR involved. Uh,
I like it. I like it. Yeah, it's like it's kind of approaching it softly rather than kind of criticizing the individual for having an emotional moment. It's a kind of it's more of a future way or a forward way of thinking than the standardized corporate way of thinking, approaching it softly in a narrative style, which is relieving, I see, in a way that it's kind of more empathetic rather than cold, the way that standardized corporate HR kind of operates. Now, when you balance this narrative storytelling and the freedom that goes along with player creativity, do you have any techniques that you like to kind of use that allow the characters or the players to express themselves, but kind of stay in that kind of lane of narrative where it kind of follows the story?
Yeah, so there's the a couple different terms that is used pretty commonly in the community, and the first one is rule of cool, right? And that is that if something is cool, let your players do it. Now, obviously, this isn't an all the time kind of thing, but if you can bend the rules or make an emotional moment or do something that allows the player to feel amped up and it bends or tweaks the rules just a little bit, or uses it in a way that's not necessarily meant to be, do it, right? Now there are people that are what we call rules lawyers that are by the book. If it's not in the book, you can't do it, right? And some people in some systems that works really well, and in other systems, depending on what you're playing, being able to be free and creative is the whole point. So it really just depends on what group you're playing with and like the point of the system you're playing in, right? D&D is relatively creative, but it has some pretty solid base rules. Whereas you jump into something like Pathfinder, that is a much more, hey, these are the rules, and exactly as you read it, this is how you're supposed to play it. And then there's other games like Blade in the Dark where it's all talkie with a little bit of mechanics worked into what you say you tried to do, kind of thing. So it really just varies on what system you're playing and what story you're telling and who's running the system, because honestly every DM that runs stuff is different.
Yeah, I could see that. So it's kind of like whatever flavor you bring to it.
Yep.
I like it. Do you have experience with kind of helping players get past that kind of like self-consciousness or that shyness when they first start?
Yes, quite a bit of it actually. We deal with a lot of new players, and that's good with us. You know, we love working with new people because there's always a moment where the player gets it. There's that breaking point, whatever you want to call it. They could be playing with you for 2-3 years before it happens, where they suddenly jump into character and everything makes sense, right? And you know, for people playing D&D, I always suggest shy people to play barbarians because all you gotta do is bonk things when it's time to bonk things, and eventually your barbarian will find their voice, whether or not it takes them a while. There's not a lot of mechanical stuff you have to worry about. It just bonk when you need to bonk, and then you can talk about being a person later, kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. Focus on the bonking.
Focus on the bonking, right? Yeah, because
Like
that's the
that.
fun part, right?
Yeah, yeah. Just smashing. So, in your journey here with tabletop role play, what would you say has kind of helped you in your own personal growth or your own creativity throughout the years? Or have you just kind of like naturally just kind of took to it?
Um, well, I have not always been a DM. I've had some fantastic people that taught me how to storytell better than how I did, right? And they gave me a very good basis for how I do what I do today. Um, but it's really something you just kind of find over time on your own, right? Everyone has their own narrative style. The DMs that I teach and certify and do all that fun stuff, I teach them the way I do it, but they'll still find their own niche on how they use the style that I use to do stuff and things, right? Um, so the biggest thing is just to do stuff and things, have fun, find something you enjoy, and work on that until you get good enough to do something else. Don't be afraid to use tools. You know, what I mean, that's a big one. You know, especially with AI and all that fun stuff. There's lots of people that are going to kibosh. Oh, you can't use technology. That's cheating. Look, if you got to cheat to get through things, do it. You're not hurting anybody. You're telling a story with people, right? Um, it's a little different when you get into the paid perspective, and you know people want more authentic stuff. But if you're just playing with your friends and getting the feel of things and enjoying the story, do what you got to do. There's no one that's going to judge you for being having fun with your friends, right?
Right.
When you get to the professional side of things, there's a little bit of an expectation to like step away from that stuff and be creative on your own and that kind of things. But as technology evolves, there's a place for it, right? Everyone uses some form of tech in TTRPGs these days, whether that's storing their character sheets on places or coming up with story hooks or making items or whatever, right? There's 4 billion things you can use it for. It's just how you use it responsibly and appropriately.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And if everybody's enjoying themselves, nobody's getting hurt. I mean, you really can't go wrong.
Right.
It's just a great
Exactly.
time. So, in your experience, has role playing and the community, has this kind of impacted your relationships with your kids in a positive way? And also, has it kind of encouraged them to get into it?
So my kids are still relatively young. Um, so the oldest definitely is excited for it, and she does it when I let her. Um, and she is very creative and is a very good storyteller all on her own. But I keep them a little bit separated from it at this point, just so they can have their natural kid time. I'm not trying to force them into situations where they have to go fight monsters. I want them to just play and have fun as per normal. Now, if that takes the form of fighting fake monsters in the, my dog running around the yard or something silly, that's a whole different story. They're allowed to chase that dragon. But as they get older and they need something more structured to do for their creativity, it's something I'm going to guide them towards if they want to go that way.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Kind of let them kind of discover it, and just in proximity, at their own pace. I agree.
Yeah,
I feel like
all three of them are currently dice goblins, even the 1-year-old. So I have to keep all my stuff locked up. So I know they like it. They just, don't know how to use it yet.
yeah, it's still kind of early. I'm kind of in the same boat with you there. I encourage it, just like self-expression rather than kind of getting into the nitty-gritty of the role play aspect, but just a self-expression as like a tool to um, encourage creativity. I feel like it's a great tool. Now, when you're creating characters or creating stories, do you have kind of like techniques or tools that you like to use to kind of help facilitate it and make it a little easier for yourself?
So I am a super improv heavy DM. I generally have a broad paint stroke idea for what we're doing for a session, and then we fill in the details as we go along. That way, I don't stress out about what needs to happen, and I don't end up railroading my characters too hard. Right? So railroading being like they have to go to one destination to the other. Most of my stories are very free roam to get to a place. And sometimes, you got to move the story along. You get people move forward a little bit of throwing them on the tracks for a minute is important. But for the most part, me personally is a lot of, hey, what do you guys want to do? And then reacting to what the players want and making situations that are fun and exciting from there. Even if it's, 2 or 3 sessions later when we finally get to those fun, exciting things, they'll get there and they feel like they've earned it kind of thing. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. It's like a balance, right? Kind of keep it somewhat loose, but have some sort of an idea of direction, and then just kind of react to whatever they're doing. Try to make it fun.
Yeah, and that's just my style. There's plenty of other DMs out there that have stuff super duper scripted, that everything is by the book. There's literally in most TTRPG systems what we call modules, which are pre-made adventures that have a, hey, this person talks and says something about these lines. If your player says something like this is how you respond, so on and so forth, to get them the information they need to move through the story. And once all that stuff happens, the next cutscene happens, and you move through that way. And that, there's plenty of people that like to do that. So that's not generally my thing, but it is what it is, right? Everyone has tools they use. Modules are great tools for people that don't necessarily want to be super duper creative as they start. I mean, everything takes a little bit of creativity, but if you're worried about like, I don't know what to do, there's plenty of modules out there to pull from.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree. Kind of not like a one-way track. It's like open to interpretation. How do you like to tell a story and incorporate your players? Now, when you're writing and working with other people, do you normally collaborate in the storytelling, or do you kind of try to keep it just like a solo story for yourself and then just introduce it?
So it really depends on the group I'm working with. If I have a group of individuals that are super excited about contributing to the story and wanting to like make a very big impact with what we're doing, then I let them, right? I give them as much control over the story as I can allow, without it breaking what I want to get to. And sometimes, even with that, you let your story break and push it into a new direction, right? Again, letting them kind of make their choices and decisions. Um, it really just depends on the group, though. Especially with new players. New players don't necessarily want to tell a story, and if they do, they don't know what story they're trying to tell. So leading them is generally a better choice. Whereas more experienced players have been doing it for a long time and are very role play heavy or things like that might want to contribute a lot more, and to feel like they're valued at the table, especially when you're playing with people that are DMs themselves and they love storytelling and doing all that. Like if you tell a DM that they can't contribute to the story, they're going to go crazy just a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that. It's kind of like they just want that opportunity to kind of express themselves and rather than being told how to do it, which
Exactly.
is admirable. It's an admirable thing to kind of go into it. So it's almost like a whole group effort rather than
Yes,
just
TTRPG in general is a huge collaborative effort. Even if you say you write all the story points and you make all the major plot hooks and all that, the thing that fills in between all those hooks are your players, right? They're the ones that do the dialogue. You know, I mean, you don't write dialogue for your players. I mean, if you do, that you do, but then you're just doing a movie or a script and not necessarily role play. Uh, there's no improv; it doesn't count.
yeah, which is probably a great tool to kind of get into is improvising. Just kind of throwing out a subject and just seeing what comes out, seeing the randomness.
Yep,
Allow
that's
the
it. That's
players to
it.
kind of,
That's a big topic we go through when we teach our DMs is how to just improvise with things and let things flow, right? Because sometimes when you're trying to get to a point or a story, you cut people off trying to get to say what you need to say, and then they miss things, and everyone's a little guilty of it. But you know, if you consistently do it, you're going to snub people, and you know, then they don't want to play, and that's never fun.
yeah, it's not as fun. I think that's really the main goal too, is just encourage people to have fun and express themselves, kind of get into a character they might not feel comfortable expressing in real life. They get the opportunity to kind of really flesh it out in a role play or a tabletop environment without being hindered or censored in a way.
Yep. Most first characters are just a mirror of themselves, and then most second characters are something wild, and then third is kind of a mixture in between. Kind of, if you watch people progress, that's how they do things. And it's always funny to see the difference between, okay, so I was a goody two shoes round number one. Now I'm going to be an evil bad guy, and they will always hate being the second character. Uh,
Yeah, 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 just to kind of stretch themselves a little bit. Yeah, I like that. Oh, it's almost like incorporating the shadow into storytelling, which is always good for somebody to kind of get in touch with their shadow side rather than denying it.
it's always an interesting exploration for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Would you say that you have experienced a lot of overcoming shyness in your own storytelling through just exploring different characters in yourself?
Well, I generally wasn't a super shy person. I have shy moments, mind you, but I'm pretty good at faking being confident 99% of the time. Even when I'm in a situation I'm not super up for. So yes and no. I mean, this is one of those am I leading the horse or is the horse leading me situations.
Yeah,
Um,
it's hard to say. Yeah, which is pretty cool. It's almost like saying like you held on to that exploration, that inner child exploring, without getting in your own way subconsciously, which is a really like it's kind of a challenge for people sometimes when they get into role playing or they want to get into role playing. They have kind of that self consciousness or that shyness to kind of get into a character or explore a character. If you could give some advice to somebody that is listening that wants to get into tabletop or wants to connect with you and get into role play, what advice would you give somebody that's a little bit hesitant?
yeah, so give it a shot. Most people are gonna accept you for where you're at. You know what I mean? If you're not much of a talker, there's plenty of ways to play a quiet character that develops and grows over time. If you're someone that is super talkative and worried about being awkward, I promise you there's enough awkward people in the community. You're not going to make a dent in anyone's memory with, oh, that one was weird. Don't worry about that. There's plenty of people that are going to enjoy you for who you are, and you know sometimes it takes a couple times to find the group of people that you fit in with, right? Just kind of like the rest of life. Sometimes you got to step to a couple different tables before you find the one that is your fit. Um, and sometimes your fit is great until scheduling hits and then it all goes to heck and you got to find another one, right?
Mm,
So it's one of those, yeah, if you're persistent you'll find something, right? If you're earnest in what you're looking for, you'll get there. And if you can't and you're having a hard time, you can always talk to me and I will run things and find people and do things at Epic Sages because that's what we do, right? We put groups together, we find people, and we tell stories.
beautiful. Yeah, I can feel that. I feel like the more we put ourselves out there, the more opportunity. So I feel like if people are listening and they do want to get in touch with Rook, I feel like it would be a great way to kind of connect with tabletop community. I'm sure you'll be able to find something for you that will let you kind of open it up and get out of your own way, so to speak. I know personally, these last couple of years, it's been kind of a journey for myself to just kind of open up and connect with people and put myself out there just so that I can get past my self-conscious, I guess, feeling of being seen and heard. Um, have you found that this has been something that you've experienced yourself with newer players that once you see them kind of open up past that shy factor or that self-consciousness, it really opens them up as a person in self-growth, and they kind of just blossom from there.
Yeah, everyone goes at their own pace, but if you give them a path of least resistance, they're going to flourish, right? Just like anything else, if you give them an easy way to grow, they're going to grow. If you're not trying to block what they're trying to do, if you're not doing the stuff that'll stop them from being who they want to be, they're going to go in positive ways. Again, I go back to the barbarian bits because sometimes people just start off as yahoos that want to bonk things or cast spells or whatever their thing that they're excited for to start role playing with, and that'll grow into something else eventually, right? They'll come into the cool character stuff where they get to have conversations, they lead armies, they do whatever else, right? They will get to that point eventually if you don't rush them. And sometimes when you don't rush them, it happens faster than most people would expect, kind of thing.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like if you give them space without judgment, and I think that's really the two things that you need, uh, to give somebody space to explore themselves, kind of grow into who they are, and not judge them for it, not label them something. And when you can do those two things, it really opens up that person and kind of lets them grow, which is huge for some people, especially if they are having that feeling of self-consciousness or shyness. Well, I appreciate everything that you do, especially for the community, 'cause I feel like that's really what is needed nowadays is more of that openness to explore, especially in the role playing. As there's so much benefit to role playing and character creation and exploring the shadow, just opening yourself up to new possibilities. So thank you again. I really appreciate your work. And if anybody is listening and they want to get into tabletop gaming or role playing, please connect with Epic Sages and talk with Rook. I'm sure he'll be able to hook you up.
Yes, happy to do so.
Now, do you have anything you'd like to say before we say goodbye?
Nope. Just if you guys need to find us in the future, Epic Sages is our nickname or handle or whatever on basically everything. I'll be sure to include our fancy digital business card so you can put the links or whatever. But don't be afraid to explore. Don't be afraid to adventure. Always keep adventure in mind.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you again. I appreciate your time. This has been Push with Love. Please remember to like and subscribe. And until next time, take care.